The Galactic Council had seen many strange things in its 10,000 years of operation, but nothing quite prepared them for the incident report from Outpost Zeta-7. Lyra stood before the assembled delegates, her weathered face betraying no emotion as holographic displays flickered around the chamber. She was human, a species still considered newcomers, despite 3 centuries of membership. Her reputation as a xenobiologist was impeccable, though her methods were often questioned. "Explain," growled Ambassador Thexnor, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been confusion or disgust. "Explain how you managed to corrupt an entire generation of Cravathi younglings." The Cravathi were apex predators, born hunters with razor-sharp intelligence and instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. Their species had conquered their home system before achieving faster-than-light travel, and they were feared throughout the galaxy. Their young were considered untouchable, raised in isolation under strict protocols to preserve their predatory nature. Lyra pulled up a datapad, her fingers moving across its surface with practiced ease. "I didn't corrupt them, Ambassador. I simply left my hat behind." The chamber erupted in chittering, roaring, and various other expressions of disbelief. Silence. The Council Arbiter's voice cut through the chaos. "Continue, Dr. Lyra." She nodded. 6 months ago, I was assigned to observe the Cravathi breeding grounds on Terminus 4. Standard protocol: observe from a distance. Document behavioral patterns. Minimal interaction. But the environmental seals on my observation pod failed during a dust storm. Lyra's eyes grew distant as she recalled that day. I had to evacuate to a maintenance bunker. In my rush, I left behind my field cap, standard-issue military surplus from Earth. Nothing special. Just olive drab fabric with a rigid brim. And, Nor leaned forward. And Keck found it. The holographic display shifted, showing grainy footage from maintenance cameras. A Cravathi cub, no larger than a Terran wolf pup but infinitely more dangerous, prowled through the abandoned observation pod. 6 legs moved with fluid precision, each step calculated. 4 eyes scanned the environment, processing information faster than most species' combat computers. Then Keck saw the hat. What happened next would be debated in xenological circles for decades. The cub approached cautiously, sniffing the strange object. Then, with surprising gentleness, Keck picked it up with his primary mandibles and placed it on his head. The hat slipped over his forward eyes. Keck shook his head, adjusted, tried again. On the 3rd attempt, the hat settled at an angle that somehow worked with his alien physiology. Keck stood perfectly still for 7 seconds. Then he raised his right foreclaw to his head in what any human would recognize as a crisp military salute. "Impossible," Thexnor whispered. "Cravathi don't have instinctive gesture protocols for." "They don't," Lyra agreed. But Keck had been watching me for weeks, through the observation glass. Every morning when I began my shift, I'd salute the sunrise, old habit from my military days. Keck had been observing, learning. The footage continued. Keck wore the hat constantly, refusing to remove it even when the pack matriarch tried to intervene. And whenever he wore it, he saluted. He saluted his siblings. He saluted the feeding stations. He saluted the automated water dispensers. Within 2 weeks, 12 other cubs had fashioned their own hats from various materials, fabric scraps, polymer sheets, even modified pieces of shed carapace. And they all saluted. The behavioral contamination spread through the entire juvenile population, Lyra explained. They began saluting everything as a greeting, a sign of respect, even a form of play. The pack dynamics shifted. Cubs who had been aggressive began showing restraint. They organized themselves into groups with designated leaders, something Cravathi don't do until full maturity. The pack dynamics Cravathi don't do until full maturity. Ambassador Thexnor's scales rippled with barely contained fury. "You've weaponized politeness. You've turned our apex predators into soldiers," Lyra said quietly. "I turned them into soldiers. The chamber fell silent. Humans understand something most species don't. Lyra continued, her voice carrying across the vast space. Discipline isn't weakness. Hierarchy isn't submission. A salute isn't subservience, it's acknowledgement, respect, unity. It's saying, I see you. I recognize your place. And we're part of something larger than ourselves. She pulled up new footage. The cubs, now adolescents, moved through complex training exercises. They worked in perfect synchronization, each individual contributing to the collective goal. They showed initiative but also restraint. They were still apex predators. Still deadly, but now they were something more. Keck came to see me last week, Lyra said, pulling up a final image. The young Cravathi, now nearly full-grown, stood at attention. The original Earth military cap, carefully preserved and modified, still sat on his head. His salute was parade ground perfect. He thanked me, Lyra continued. In his species way. Of course. He said the hat taught him that strength and honor could coexist with structure and mutual respect. His entire generation has petitioned the Council to establish formal military academies. They want to serve as peacekeepers, explorers, protectors. Thexnor stared at the image. One hat. One gesture. One human's habit. That's all it took, Lyra confirmed. Humans have been doing this for millennia, taking our warrior instincts and channeling them through discipline, through ritual, through symbols as simple as a hat and a salute. We learned that the most dangerous predators are those who choose when to strike. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. The Council will need time to process this development. As Lyra was escorted from the chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. Through the viewing port, she could see the Cravathi delegation in heated discussion, and there, standing slightly apart, was Keck, still wearing that ridiculous hat, still snapping perfect salutes at anyone who passed. Humanity had given the galaxy many things: technology, art, philosophy. But perhaps their greatest gift was teaching apex predators that even the fiercest warrior could benefit from a little discipline and a really good hat.